The first delicate rays of dawn crept over the rugged mountain peaks, bathing the remote village nestled in the valley below in warm golden light. Elaina stirred, roused from a deep slumber by the cheerful chirping of birds outside her window. She stretched and yawned, then threw back the quilted blankets on her small bed. A smile touched her lips as she gazed out at the pink and orange sky. It was the start of another peaceful day in her beloved village. After washing up and dressing in her usual garb of a simple linen dress and apron, Elaina headed outside, inhaling the crisp morning air scented with pine and wildflowers. It was still early, and only a few villagers were up and about on the dirt lanes, exchanging friendly greetings and banter as they began their daily routines. Elaina returned their smiles and waves as she strolled unhurriedly along, the hem of her dress brushing lightly over the ground, still damp with dew. At the very edge of the village, Elaina passed through a weathered wooden gate into the sprawling garden where she cultivated the herbs essential for her healing tonics and salves. Lavender, sage, thyme, chamomile, neat rows of plants rioted with colour and scents in the early light. Elaina breathed deeply, savouring the earthy aromas as she moved slowly along the gravel path, her woven gathering basket in hand. With practiced care, Elaina snipped stems and leaves of sage, lavender, and valerian, gently placing each bundle into her basket. She handled every plant with reverence, murmuring words of thanks for their gifts of healing. Only the choicest leaves and most vibrant buds made it into Elena's basket, to be transformed into the remedies that soothed the aches and pains of the villagers. After collecting a bountiful harvest, Elaina wandered through the rows of herbs, checking each plant and noting areas to tend to later. She added compost and loosened the soil around the roots with her trowel, nurturing the living medicines growing under her stewardship. Satisfied that her beloved garden was thriving, Elaina finally turned back towards the village, her basket brimming with the morning's bounty. Back inside her cozy cabin, Elaina got to work on preserving the fresh herbs. Some she tied together in bunches to hang from the rafters to dry, while others she carefully stacked in woven trays. Soon the cabin was filled with their heady scents. At her large work table strewn with vials, jars and bottles, Elaina ground dried chamomile flowers into a fine powder with a mortar and pestle. Her voice was a soft hum as she worked, focused but content. The powders and dried herbs were carefully funneled into glass jars, all neatly labelled in Eleina's scrolling handwriting. Next, Elaina filled her small iron cooking pot with valerian root, lavender buds, and other herbs, pouring fresh well water over them. She built up the fire in the stone hearth and soon had the mixture simmering into a fragrant medicinal infusion. Elaina hovered over it, tending carefully and inhaling the aromatic steam. The herbal brew would make a soothing nighttime tea to calm restless minds and bodies. Just as Elaina finished bottling the tea mixture, a timid knock sounded at her door. She opened it to find young Caleb, clutching his leg, his face tightened with pain. "I fell out of a tree," he explained sheepishly. "Well, let's have a look then," Elaina replied gently. She helped Caleb over to a chair and examined his leg, clucking her tongue at the angry red scrape covering his knee. With a soft touch, she cleaned away the dirt and grit before smearing on a healing salve. Caleb winced at first, but soon relaxed as the cooling ointment soothed the sting. Elaina carefully bandaged the wound, then presented Caleb with a small vial. "This is a tonic for the pain. Take a spoonful whenever it hurts too much, all right?" Caleb's face flooded with relief. "Thank you, Elaina," he said fervently. With the vial of medicine clutched in his small hand, he hobbled out the door towards home. After restoring order to her workshop and tidying up, Elaina headed out into the village once more, her basket now filled with freshly prepared remedies. She decided to stop by the small schoolhouse run by the patient schoolmistress, Miss Clara. Elaina found her attempting to soothe a tearful young girl named Sophie, who was complaining of a throbbing toothache. "This should help with the pain, dear," Elaina said gently, as she handed Sophie a vial of numbing tonic. "Now no more sticking your tongue in that hole. It will heal faster if you leave it be." Sophie gave a small giggle through her tears and promised to heed Elena's advice, Next, Elaina walked down the lane to the blacksmith's forge, where she found the burly blacksmith wiping sweat from his brow. His hands were raw and blistered from work. "Elaina, thank the stars you're here," he exclaimed upon seeing her basket of salves. She carefully applied a healing ointment to his cracked hands and promised to return with more the next day. Elena's first major stop was the modest cottage on the western edge of town belonging to Amara, the wise village elder who had mentored Elaina in the healing arts from a young age. "Come in, dear, I just brewed some tea," Amara exclaimed happily, opening the door to usher Elaina inside. They sat sipping fragrant cinnamon tea as Amara regaled Elaina with tales of the villagers she had helped find love over her many long years in the community. Elaina listened eagerly, always delighted by Amara's stories. The hearth fire crackled merrily as they chatted away the afternoon, Amara imparting her wisdom while Elaina shared news and gossip from around the village. The sun was sinking low as Elaina finally ambled back to her cabin, her basket significantly lighter, after delivering tinctures and salves to grateful villagers along the way. She poured a cup of the calming valerian tea she had brewed that morning and settled onto her bed with her journal. Dipping her quill into the ink pot on her nightstand, she wrote reflectively about her day of nurturing the plants and people she loved. Elaina cherished these quiet moments at the end of each day, full of gratefulness for her skills as a healer and the opportunity to be of service. Soon the comforting tea took effect, and Elena's eyelids grew heavy. She carefully capped the ink pot and tucked her journal away, then snuggled down under the covers. As she drifted off, images of the vibrant herbs in her garden and the smiling faces of the villagers she had helped that day danced in her mind. Elaina slept deeply and peacefully, restored and ready to embrace whatever the new day would bring. Dawn's rosy fingers were just creeping over the horizon when Elaina arose, feeling energized. After dressing, she headed out to her garden to gather herbs as the first bird song filled the cool morning air. Today, she carefully selected stalks of fresh lavender, mint, elderflower, and other fragrant plants. Back inside, she busied herself preparing a large batch of floral soap to distribute around the village. The rich lather and lovely scents soon filled the workspace as she diligently stirred the bubbling pot. When a knock came at the door later that morning, Elaina was surprised to find Amara on her doorstep. "I hope you don't mind me dropping in unexpectedly, dear," Amara said. "But I wanted to deliver this basket of fresh eggs from my chickens. I remember you saying you were running low." Elaina thanked her profusely for the gift of eggs, then invited Amara to stay for a cup of elderflower tea. The two women sat by the window, looking out over the village alive with activity as merchants hawked wares in the market square and children laughed and played tag in the lanes. "The spring festival is nearly here," Amara remarked. "I can't wait to see the maypole raised and enjoy all the music and revelry. Everyone looks forward to it all year long." Elaina nodded happily. "It's my favourite tradition too. I'm especially excited for the maypole dance this year." A faint blush rose on her cheeks as she thought about shyly asking the blacksmith's beautiful daughter Vera to be her partner. After Amara headed home, Elaina finished bottling up the flower soap she had prepared earlier. She loaded up her basket and headed into the village to deliver the soaps, along with medicines and salves needed by her regular patients. At the inn, she provided fresh bandages for the innkeeper's wife, whose hands were healing well after a burn accident. And for old man Graham, whose joints ached terribly in wet weather, she mixed up a fresh batch of her warming liniment. Wherever she went throughout the village that day, she was met with smiles and thanks. Elena's kind heart and healing hands had touched nearly every family in the village over the years. Parents bid their children to be careful climbing trees and scraping knees, lest they end up needing one of Elena's expertly brewed tonics. As the day drew to a close, Elaina once again retired to her cozy cabin. She tidied up her garden and pulled a few weeds, then sat down to document the day's events in her journal by the light of an oil lamp. Dipping her quill in ink, she wrote of Amara's visit and their chat about the upcoming spring festival. A small but happy life, Elaina thought contentedly as she prepared for bed. This village was her home, these people her family. She drifted off to sleep feeling blessed,